Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to introduce this next session at the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. I would like to begin by commending the important leadership of Dr. Sultan Al Jaber and reflect on a couple of comments he made yesterday in his excellent opening speech. Dr. Sultan said, "The corridor to the future runs through the UAE," and that it offers an open platform for partnership. I will come back to that theme later on in my opening comments. But first, I speak on the topic from the perspective of having led a global bank, and a global bank that was involved for over 150 years in financing today's industrial landscape. In that time, we also developed our first transition plan for net zero and set our first net zero target. And personally, I have spent 39 years as a corporate banker working with businesses from every sector of industry and every region of the world. And therefore, my comments reflect on my own personal experiences and that of my previous organization. And I want to touch on some topics that I think are relevant to this next session. First, conviction. You need to be clear about why you're doing what you're doing as a business leader. I recognized in my old job that today's climate challenge is linked to how today's industrial landscape has been formed. As a corporate bank, we had financed the entrepreneurs of the world for more than 150 years, and it is those entrepreneurs that have built today's industrial landscape. I saw a commercial opportunity in that those corporates recognized the need for change and were innovating their own business models to have a lower carbon footprint on the world of the future. And that commercial opportunity as a provider of finance was huge. The amount of infrastructure that needed to be invested in was very, very significant over the next 10 to 20 to 30 years. So I saw a business case, not just the need. Second, I recognized what we did not know. We understood the industries, the technologies, and the business models of the past extremely well as providers of finance. But we did not understand the technologies of the future. And in that, we needed help. So we decided to bring in experts, scientists, new thinkers who understand the problem of today and understand the technologies of tomorrow. And then we had to educate our bankers on those new business models and those new technologies, the opportunities and the risks, the technologies that are likely to succeed and the technologies that are likely to fail. Third, through that understanding, we were able to develop economic business cases for new financing models of new technologies. We were able to then start to publish action plans of how we would help different industry sectors transition their business models from today to the future. I recognized, and we recognized as a management team and as a board, how challenging it is to publish commitments, targets, and plans whilst not having all of the answers. And that is certainly the case when it comes to solving the climate challenge of today. We don't have all the answers and we don't have a clear roadmap, yet we need to formulate some plans in order to start the transition. That is particularly challenging for a listed company where there is a fear of over-commitment and a fear of challenge if those commitments are not met. And that is particularly heightened in today's environment. However, the one thing I kept coming back to was our clients were innovating, were changing, and therefore we saw an economic case. This was not just a moral cause, but we believed it to be an economic opportunity. And the final comment I'd make is we had to be open and honest with what we knew and what we did not know. You have to tell your shareholders in a very clear and open way what you can commit to, what you do know, and what your dependencies and assumptions are. That is the only way to manage the downside risk of overcommitting on public targets, to be clear and transparent on what you know and what you do not yet know. It's also important to our regulators that they understand the operating environment that you're operating within, the uncertainty that exists. And it is even more important from the dialogue I had with our colleagues, over 200,000 colleagues within my old firm, where they recognized the need for change, but at times they were scared in their own right of putting their head above the parapet and advocating for a lending commitment on a technology they did not understand. And we had to create an environment for them where they were willing and able to put their name to a commitment, even though they weren't wholly familiar with the business case that was before them. Now, my final comment on this brings me back to the opening comments yesterday from Dr. Sultan. The private sector innovators also need support, not necessarily on the process of innovation and prototyping, but certainly on the process of scaling up that innovation. In some cases, public policy may be sufficient to create the demand signal. But public policy alone, creating a demand signal alone, may not be sufficient to get the necessary funding for the scale-up of those operations beyond innovation into full-scale operation and productivity. That sometimes require public finance support. Now, that may be a price support mechanism for the first 3 to 5 to 6 to 7 years to mitigate some of the development costs that have to be borne, and that there is some form of price support mechanism or contract for difference in the early stages of scale-up. It may be in the form of grants, or it may be in the form of an offtake agreement. But there are certain technologies that will not get to scale unless there is some form of private sector, public sector collaboration. And that brings me to the UAE and to the comments yesterday. To achieve that, the best way to achieve it is when a nation state, the state institutions of a nation, and the corporates within a nation, the established corporates, collaborate with the innovators, not just within their own country, but the innovators globally. And that's where I think Abu Dhabi, the UAE, have a tremendous opportunity to collaborate public and private sector innovators globally, and to facilitate the scale-up of new technologies, to de-risk and to turn potential opportunity into real opportunity. And that, for me, is what Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week is all about. Thank you very much.
Many thanks for setting the frame, the context for our next conversation with our wonderful guests who are already joining us on stage. I will introduce them in a minute. We are going to focus now on execution and how sustainability can be a driver of performance, resilience, and a competitive advantage. So we are joined by a stellar panel to explore this conversation. Dr. Pratima Rangarajan, CEO at Climate Investment. And please join me in a big round of applause for our guests here on stage. Thank you. Constance Chalchat, Global Chief Sustainability Officer at BNP Paribas CIB and Global Markets. Thank you for joining us. Guido Brusco, who's Chief Operating Officer at ENI. Thank you for joining us on stage here today. Ibrahim Al-Zubi, Group Chief Sustainability and ESG Officer at ADNOC. And Alexandre Mars, who's founder and CEO at Mission M, the EPIC Foundation, Bliss and Infinite, amongst many other activities, of course. Alexandre, thank you for joining us today. So we're going to start this conversation with a question for you, Pratima. From the perspective of an investor deploying capital in the transition, to which extent can sustainability deliver financial performance? A big question to start with.
It has to.
It has to, indeed.
It has to. I think it's old-fashioned to think. And when you start something brand new, like when we went on the sustainability journey, we could start by thinking it's not going to be valuable at the end. But you know that sometime on the journey, when you're ready to scale, it has to be. Otherwise, there will be no adoption. And I'll give you my personal example if I have a minute.
Sure.
We invested early on in our fund in a little valve company for oil and gas. And the reason we invested it is zero emissions, so no methane leaks, yeah? But the reason the companies are buying it is because it's like a ball valve. Everybody buys this. This is like ubiquitous in the industry, as you know, hundreds of thousands, but it opens completely. So actually you have more throughput. You have more profits. And it's self-cleaning. So you don't have issues with it staying open. So when we look at it, it's amazing how much value it's returned to our clients. So it's not just that it's zero emissions because it's preventing leaks and it's keeping valuable product in the pipe.
Thank you very much. A very strong point to kickstart this conversation. Guido, not only is it difficult at times to prove the value of sustainability, many people see it as a cost, in fact, to businesses. So what have you learned about turning sustainability into a genuine value driver?
Yeah, indeed, it's you are correct. So we've always seen the sustainability as a cost in the past, but as a matter of fact, it is a powerful value driver. And I'll give you two examples of our company and exploring the sustainability activities, how we've turned it into a profitable business. One is related to the mobility. We have created a vehicle with, transforming the traditional refinery into a biorefinery, and we vertically integrated this business to produce by ourselves a significant part of the feedstock, more than 30-35%, through agriculture. So basically, we use land which are not devoted to the food chain or rotational crops to basically produce feedstock like castor oil, like other vegetable oil, which are again not used for food, and again land which are not devoted to the food production to feed this biorefinery. The second one is on the carbon capture, and just by repurposing facilities, we can basically give a compelling and affordable outlet for hard-to-abate industry to basically store the CO2. So those are just two examples of circular economy which turn the sustainability activity into profitable business.
Thank you for sharing those very powerful examples indeed. I'm going to turn to you next, Constance, because companies these days are under pressure to move faster than regulation. From the vantage point of a global bank financing the real economy, what role should corporate leadership play in shaping policy, and where should business draw the line?
I think it's absolutely critical, as Ibrahim was saying it this morning, that business and regulators work hand in hand. This is a must-do. We absolutely need for sustainability to be managed efficiently, to be able to make those investments that you're talking about, to be able to generate the value that you're describing. We need stable, clear, predictable rules that will unlock investment, because most of the investment we're talking about are investments that are long-term. You need permitting, you need licensing, and the ROI are sometimes 10 years, 15 years. So this predictability and the ability to work in collaboration between the business and the regulation is absolutely important. Another thing which is clear is that we need regulation to go at a pace which can be absorbed and which is commensurate to the capacity of technology, companies, and consumers to change. When it goes too fast, too bold, too ambitiously, sometimes it doesn't work. So where to draw the line? Well, I think there's two red lines for us. One is complexity. We've seen that sometimes when it's too complex, it's actually producing the reverse effect of what it intends to. And we see companies staying away from sustainability because it's just too complex, too cumbersome. The second red line is really when it becomes too fragmented, too regionally specific. As an international bank, we support international clients who are sometimes struggling because even across a frontier, you're going to have different regulations that apply to them, which making any investment at scale a nightmare and sometimes not worth it.
Yeah. So very quickly, a follow-up here. What would solve that problem, that dilemma of this fragmented regulatory landscape?
I think some level of, we've heard a lot pragmatism this morning, some level of pragmatism and alignment, even if it's imperfect. I think sometimes perfection is the enemy of good, and imperfection would allow greater alignment and flexibility across countries and regions.
Thank you. Great pointers here. Thank you very much for that. Now, Ibrahim, I'm going to ask you what credible accountability looks like from your perspective, at ADNOC, a very large organization. How do you ensure that sustainability goals translate into operational decisions, incentives, and performance metrics? Because we need to be able to track all this, of course.
Thank you, Charlotte, and I would like to welcome my fellow panelists to Abu Dhabi again. Welcome everyone to Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, which is, I think, it's the best platform to have this amazing discussion that you're leading today with the great panelists that we have on the stage. First of all, at ADNOC, and as it should be, I believe as a sustainability practitioner, sustainability shouldn't be a trade-off. It should be a core value. Yeah. And when it's a core value, it gets embedded in the operating model, the business model. We heard Guido give you examples, but when you talk about an organization like your organization, to come up with these examples, there's a huge work and operating model behind it. So the minute you embed it in the operating model, you start talking the business language, you start putting KPIs. You start delivering on the promises. If we talk about environmental sustainability, it's all about publicly promises and targets that reduction by when. Well, it's time to deliver on these promises and to provide evidences. Without having sustainability as a part of the operating model, you cannot measure or you cannot report back. Now, part of what we're used to know about sustainability is maybe relying on the compliance part, measure, report, repeat, assure sometimes and repeat. Which should go beyond that, If you put it there, if you look at the reduction as a business model, I'll give you an example. We look at reduction as an efficiency exercise. An efficiency exercise, I'm not going to talk about the emissions, I'm going to talk about money. Because of the efficiency, we managed to save on an annual basis, for example, with the carbon emissions reduction, energy efficiency, $220 million a year. We look at the social and economic. If you have targets on our in-country value program, which is supply chain, we managed to return around $83 billion since 2018 to the UAE economy. Again, economic part, creating jobs. With this, the ICV, we created 23,000 jobs. So these just numbers, this is a common language we use across the whole structure in ADNOC, from board to ExCom, to CFO, to CSO, to CEO. This is what when we talk about sustainability. Now, if I may just talk about the complex of regulatory part, I think, and that's why it's great to be here this time in this changing world, having this dialogue about sustainability in Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. Things changed. And if you attended the opening, and if not, please go and listen to the speech made my boss, which I believe it was bold. It was a roadmap how sustainability could be pragmatic with the regulations we have in Europe, with the geopolitics, the focus on something else to ensure that we are still part of the formula. And the only way to be part of the formula, Pratima's quick answer to you, of course, it should provide return on investment and value. If we provide value, we still have a seat on the table. And this is how sustainability should be done across business, and this is how we do it in ADNOC.
Thank you, Ibrahim. I think your point really complements what Constance was talking about earlier, the fact that you can't let the need to be, or the desire to be perfect, get in the way of being pragmatic and deliver that change pretty quickly. Now, Alexandre, if there is one person on this panel who doesn't need to be convinced about the benefits of sustainability in terms of financial performance and as a value driver, it's you. So tell us about the scope of your work here and how you have been delivering that value as an investor, an impact investor.
Thank you, Charlotte. Salam alaikum. We're so happy to be here, and it's important because in the few years ago, it was impossible to talk about sustainable finance. It was an oxymoron. So it was impossible to put those two terms together. I think most of us here went to good schools. It was not possible. And what is interesting when I'm looking and when I'm hearing my friends here is doable. You can do good, and you can outperform others. So when I did start Bliss, it's an investment fund 10 years ago, that was the premise we were doing. It's how can we do those two together? But talking about those values, and can you drive results? Because 10 years ago, if we were going after people who want to make more money, that's the basic of finance. You don't put money somewhere, you have less money at the end of the year. You want to have more money. The question is, how can this be aligned? And that's why it's important to have this conversation in this region. It's all about alignment. That's who we are, why we do what we do, why we are on stage doing what we do today, rather than doing very different things elsewhere. That's why another conversation we had before, this is this alignment. And that's what we started doing years and years ago. It's inside and outside. Inside, whatever we make, whatever money we make at Bliss, 10% of it is going to nonprofit. So it's like zakat at scale. That's what we do. A goal is to connect everything to something positive. Whatever money we want to make, how this money can have an impact. Through the technology, that's what we do. We back entrepreneurs who want to build a new cool technology. But this technology should have a positive impact on the world of tomorrow. That's what but what is important, Charlotte, thank you for the question. It could only work if we outperform other funds. And we're doing this for 10 years, and for 10 years we have more than 20% returns year over year. So yes, it's not a dream, it's something we can do. Why? Because you have more and more entrepreneurs. We discussed those entrepreneurs in Italy, in the region. I was giving a talk yesterday, Up 71. You have all those entrepreneurs who want to do something new. But we shouldn't forget why we are on this planet. We are on this planet for a reason, and this reason is certainly just to provide something positive for people and for the planet.
Thank you very much for that. And what you're telling us here is that sustainability or impact is not just a value driver, but it's also an incentive. It's an extra motivation to do well and to get those returns so you can deploy them to do good. Fantastic. We have a few minutes left. In fact, 5 for our 5 speakers here. So I'd like to conclude this conversation with your thoughts and your experience on what has been the most decisive shift to unlock all this, to make sure that sustainability delivers that value.
So maybe I'll go back to what Ibrahim said. It's all in the numbers for many of us engineers in the room. And if you look at the entire energy system from production all the way to use, do you know we only use about less than 1/3 of the primary energy we produce? The rest of it is wasted, either as emissions or as burnt fuel that doesn't do anything. So that other 2/3, so every 3 molecules, you have to make 3 molecules for every 1 you use. 2 molecules are wasted, but they also produce carbon dioxide or methane, right? So think about just the potential that we have in terms of not just emissions reduction, but profitability if we are the most efficient operations in the planet.
Thank you for that, Pratima. Thank you very much. Constance.
I think it's being able to move ESG from being a silo, something which was about advocacy disclosure, to make it really an integrated part of the business line, making sure that business managers understand ESG can be a source of cost cutting, to your point on efficiency, a source of revenue. And the minute we were able to really embed it into the business line, it's really, it's changed quite a lot dramatically, the way people handle it. So,
thank you, Constance. Guido.
Yeah, so I just want to first echo on what Pratima said on the better use of the energy. So this was one of the elements which we realized during the energy transition, that we waste a lot of energy. So we need to better use the energy for the production of the hydrocarbons. We also need to reduce methane emissions and capture as much as possible the produced CO2. One additional element I wanna add to the conversation is we don't talk too much about the base load, and the base load today for the power generation is essentially gas, coal, and nuclear. So today we focus a lot on many fossil fuels, which are of course polluting, but with some mitigations you can reduce the pollution. But we don't focus too much on coal. Just a data point for all of us and for the audience. In 2024, the total CO2 emission in the world was 37.4 gigatons, of which 40% is due to the power generation, which makes 15 gigatons. Of this 15 gigatons, 73% is produced by coal, which accounts only for 30% of the power generation. So if today we would replace coal with gas, we would reduce this 11 to 5. So basically reducing the 37 to 30 almost.
Yeah.
So there again,
phenomenal reduction, and this without mitigations, without CO2, without capture of the CO2 for the gas-fired power turbines. So I just want to put this as a food for thought and as an argument of reflection for the audience and for all of us.
Sure, very valid point here. Ibrahim.
I think I'll be very brief, but this reflection is so important. We should move from compliance to systems outcomes. And systems outcomes, you talk about efficiency. Let's revisit the grid, base load. Let's create investments. And I would like to add something. You said planet and people. I would say we can do well by doing good. It doesn't harm to help planet, profit, and people. I will add another P for it. So we can do well by doing good. Planet, profit, people. That's the best formula. Compliance to system outcome.
Fair enough. Alexandre?
So right. So good intentions don't change the world. Numbers, actions, that's what we see. And if you cannot only say good things, and you need to walk the talk. Absolutely. I think that's what we see. And I agree with you. We need the P. We need the last P, the profit. We need to show it's doable And we are trying hard, but we're doing it.
Absolutely, for sure you are. Many thanks to all of you for a great conversation here. You have clearly made the point that sustainability can be a driver of value. Thank you so much.
Done, well said.
Thank you.
Guido,
Thank you.